Hey there, I'm your buddy. I'm your guy. I came through. I actually showed up, right? I'm like the deadbeat dad who finally decided to come to like your birthday party or something and actually tell you something cool. Yeah, it's David Wilcock. It's me, and I'm here in my beautiful set. We've built this one here in where we are right now, the undisclosed location. And boy, do I have a show for you today. We are going to be getting into some very interesting things because there was in case of emergency, please break the glass prophecy encoded in the Law of One series, which again is the source text that has been so central to all the work that I've done over so many years. Okay, so he says, I have the impression that in the near future, the seeking will increase, spiritual seeking. This is the main thing they're concerned about, these higher beings, by many who are now incarnate in the physical on this planet. And they say, yeah, the generalities of expression can never be completely correct. However, we may note that when faced with a hole in the curtain, an entity's eyes may well peer for the first time through the window beyond. This tendency is probable given the probability of vortices active within your space-time and time-space continuum at this nexus. Okay. When faced with a hole in the curtain, an entity's eyes may well peer for the first time through the window of beyond. The hole in the curtain, folks, is exactly what's happening to us right now. The hole in the curtain is the Great Awakening. It is the process we're going through right now. It is the unveiling of negativity on a global scale, a shockingly integrated corporate, vertically integrated structure that's got social media, corporations, military, and government all in lockstep. And they're all working together for what now appears to be a very unpleasant agenda that involves reduction of how many people are here. At least this is what everybody's thinking, right? Now, whether it's true or not, I'm not arguing that at this point. I'm just saying that this is, obviously, by all the things that we're seeing, the masses of people gathering in many, many countries around the world, how huge those are, this is not going to go away. And this is what people feel. And people are looking at evidence and they're coming up with their own conclusions and they're not being told what to think. So what they say is the hole in the curtain causes the entity to peer through the window beyond for the first time, right? What does that really mean? That means that as people on Earth right now, many of them for the very first time, I've been prepared for this, again, they were preparing me for this in 1999, right? They were giving me the statements of what was going to happen and that it would be okay in 1999. But here we are now, and many people are only now seeing what the fourth density energy reveals, which is the hidden negativity on Earth. Why does it do this? Because the negativity cannot last in the presence of fourth density. It's like the idea of throwing an ice cube on a sidewalk in the middle of the summer and the hottest day of the year. How long do you think that ice cube is going to last? How long do you think negativity lasts in the presence of light? Shadow is only caused by an absence of light. If you throw on full spectrum light in all directions, there's no shadow anymore. Nothing has the ability to cast a shadow because the light is everywhere. That's basically what fourth density is. It blows open the future. It blows open the realization of why life on Earth has sucked so much, why we've had such a crappy economy, why we're still driving these vehicles that are almost no different than trains from the early 1800s. It's essentially a locomotive. But the big technological breakthrough is we figured out how to put rubber on the tires so we don't have to go on a rail. And then what about the fuel? Well, yeah, okay, so we kind of went from coal to gas. Wow, that's huge. Wow, it's amazing technological advancement. It's a locomotive. We're driving locomotives with rubber tires that burn gas. Nothing has changed. All of these other advancements that we have, smartphones, high technology, a little watch that has everything you need inside of it, and we can't figure out how to build something better than a locomotive with rubber wheels? It's ridiculous. And that's because the people who are profiting off of the oil system set it all up at the beginning of the 20th century, and they didn't come up with any better business model, so they just kept using it. They don't want you to stop using this model because their business relies upon it for profit. If I'm talking about things like, free energy, you don't need to pay for that. If the buzzword in the military, as I learned, is power plants. So when you hear the word power plants, that actually means something that releases a large amount of energy, and it's not going to be expensive. It's in fact free or very, very inexpensive. So the only real reason why all this stuff has been held back is that they want us to suffer. They want us to be miserable. They want us to be under control. And they want us to be constantly traumatized. One of the greatest things that I have learned over the years is how the negative works. What is the strategy of the negative? The strategy of the negative I call stacking, and this is how most people get attacked by the negative. The negative has learned that it doesn't need to hit you with one really, really bad crisis, like a car crash. You don't need to actually crash your car to have a total meltdown. All that needs to happen is a combination of really awful stress out in the world, and there's plenty of that right now, so you could go crazy just by reading the news. It's cognitive dissonance, but also you have these bad things going on in your own life. And so if crisis number 1, 2, 3, and 4, betrayal number 1, 2, 3, and 4 all kind of collide in on you at the same time, while these negative things are also happening in the world, the effect on your psyche is that you feel totally overwhelmed, and then you go into a dissociative state. Now, I believe that everyone disassociates, and this is what the cabal is trying to get you to do. Because when you disassociate, you go into a fight or flight response. And we've learned a lot about this in psychology. We've learned that in fight or flight, you only use the core of your brain. You only use the reptilian brain. The rest of your brain, when people are in fight or flight, trauma, PTSD type of condition, none of your brain is functioning. Your brain does not work. You are a child. You are a child who's terrified. And you're a child who either is going to fight or run, but those are your decisions, and that's the only thing you're going to focus on. You do not have the capacity to analyze information. You do not have the capacity for critical thinking. And so people don't understand that you can have the equivalent of a separate identity that pops up in you when you are traumatized. And in this identity, you're in fight or flight, and in this identity, you only use the reptilian core of your brain. You literally do not have access to the rest of your brain. You can't think. So wouldn't it be interesting if you were a globalist elite and you could make people that way? Keep them in the center of their brain. Keep the rest of their brain from functioning so that they don't have the ability to critically think, they don't have the ability to analyze what you're doing, and they don't have the ability to really even understand it. That's what they're trying to do. And so a psychopath is a person who does have the use of most of their brain, but they don't have the frontal lobes. So bear in mind that when a psychopath is torturing you, and the psychopath is basically just defined, it's not like Hannibal Lecter. It's not a murderer. A psychopath in a psychological definition is a person who has no compassion for you. They just want to manipulate you, they want to control you, they want to abuse you. That's what they're here for. That's what they're interested in. So if that's what you're dealing with, and that kind of person is out there, they do not use the frontal lobes of their brain. So psychopaths, they found on these MRIs, the frontal lobes are gone. But remember, if the psychopath can trick you into going into your trauma body, your pain body as some have called it, now you only have access to the core. So they have a lot more brain power available to them than you do, because the frontal lobes being offline means that they can still think and analyze and strategize while you are in this traumatized state where you can't really think clearly at all. And because they don't have the frontal lobes, the compassion, whether they're hurting your feelings, that has no relevance for them. And so a certain percentage of our population are psychopaths, traditionally said to be 4% men, 2% women, which means theoretically a man is twice as likely to be a psychopath as a woman. But still, 4 to 2% is not that much. However, when these people organize and they form social structures and they form governments and they form corporations, it's a big problem because they all start thinking the same way. And wouldn't you know that if you're in a ceremony, and I'm going to be very, very careful about how I say this, if you're in a ceremony with other people and bad things are happening, you go into a programmable hypnotic state because the horror of what you're seeing is so incredibly huge that it is exactly the equivalent of tripping. If you're in a very, very horrible ceremony, you are having a psychedelic experience because you're so traumatized by simply seeing this. And imagine what would happen with those people in the room as they look each other in the eye while they're doing these horrible things. The bonding that occurs between those individuals because they've been bonded by a shared trauma experience that's very horrific. That bonding leads to loyalty, just like it does with soldiers in the military. They're loyal to each other because they go through the same thing. And the way that they justify it is they say, we're the elite. We're the special ones. We're the cool ones. You know, you all suck, but we're amazing. And we're better than you, and so we want to get rid of you because we don't like you. That's what's going on. And we need to deal with this. You cannot be the ostrich. I used to try to teach people about the deep state, and they'd say, David, you're creating so much negativity, I just don't want to be involved. I'm out of here. I'm never going to go to your website again. I've had lots and lots and lots of those emails. Well, I'm not creating the earth changes, and I'm not creating the Illuminati. I'm not creating evil. You don't have to. The earth is a collective mind, and it's collectively experiencing what we as a collective, 7.6 or whatever billion people, create. It's not up to you. You can help steer the ship, but you got to go through everybody's karma. We're all on the ship together, and we got to go through planetary karma, planetary alleviation. So in this law of one quote, what they're saying is that once you start to realize that the whole darn thing is rigged up, that everything that you've been told your whole life is a lie, that you're not as free as you thought you were, you're not as safe as you thought you were, they don't care about you. They don't want you to be happy. They don't want you to have abundance. They don't want to release new technology. They don't want the financial system to get better. They don't want you to have access to amazing healing devices at all. They want you weak. They want you tired. They want you sick. And they want you dying or dead. Because then it's more easy to run this planet. And they certainly don't want you to realize that there's beings that have a lot more authority than they do, just in terms of their level of technology and spiritual expertise. They want to be gods. They think they are gods. They don't want to be competing with any other gods. They want to be the god. They want to be that thing. So if you can vibe in to the reality of what great spiritual teachers like Jesus told us over the years, why would you think that all that stuff got negated? Why would you think that, oh, well, Jesus was wrong? Yeah, it's not really going to work out. We're all going to die. Jesus was wrong. It's stupid. There's 35 different ancient prophecies all over the world, and they all say the same thing. They all say that the world's going to go through a horrible hell process, but that it turns into an enlightenment experience, and that we're okay. Everybody says this. It's not unique to Christianity at all. It's actually a very common, widespread belief system. That's just truth. I'm just laying it out for you as the truth. So let's go back to the slide. I want you to read more of this now. Okay, so this is session 65, question 6, and now we're really getting into where this is about to drop. So as we're progressing into this fourth density, the coming changes, not only in the physical third density planet due to the heating effect, that's the Earth changes, global warming. They talk about that being the result of us resisting fourth density. If we didn't, the planet wouldn't be heating up so much. And sure enough, have you noticed that like glacier ice is returning in the Arctic? You can sneeze if you want to. She was like, I'm like, oh, please, just let it go. It's okay. We don't care if you sneeze. You're doing a great job switching. Thank you. So wouldn't it make sense that all of this, that this alleviation of the earth changes right now is because more people are waking up, and therefore the fourth density energy is not being interrupted? They actually said there's a possibility that we might not have earth changes as we go through fourth density. We might not get the dreaded pole shift, tsunami, all that kind of stuff. And it relies on us. It relies on you. Anytime that you start deferring your authority and think that, well, there's nothing I can do. What could I do? I'm just one person. You know how much I've heard this over the years? Well, I'm just one person. I channeled this stuff in a barn. Now it's true. what is one person? One person is incredible. One person is the divine embodied in human form with full access to cosmic consciousness in potential as you work through your trauma and your healing. And you can learn to go through suffering without regressing into this reptilian-brained child who's always angry or is running away because it's fight or flight, one or the other. You're only going to do one of two things. Although now the research says there's freeze too, fight, flight, and freeze. And I think a lot of people are in freeze, but they're just starting to go into fight. So I had a dream not too long ago where I was working on my thing with the hover cars and the anti-gravity and the power plants, and I'm at a computer on a battlefield working on this stuff, and then the people were represented by people literally just jumping over my shoulders, and they're just running onto the battlefield, and they've never done this before, they've never been political, they've never gone public, and now they're doing it, and that is happening. And just the fact that so many people are aware of what's going on now, that awareness itself is incredibly astonishing. I never thought that the stuff that I was talking about would be so widely seen by so many different people. And yet here we are today, and it's so obvious to everyone, and that's incredible. So the law of one makes it very clear that this is not going to go bad, that this is a divinely ordained process, that it's guided and it's guarded. So again, if you're thinking it's all over, it's doom and gloom, I don't know why David told me it was going to be okay, it's all going down the crapper. No. I very much believe that this is an intensely well-organized global initiation, allowed to exist, and to some degree structured and influenced by higher forces, by angelic beings. They will not allow, the higher beings will not allow certain things to happen. They will not allow nuclear war to happen, for example. They just won't. And there's hundreds of times that we tried and they won't let it happen. So let's go back to the slide now. So he says, the heating effect, but also other changes that herald forth density, such as the ability to perform paranormal activity. I'm assuming that both of these are also and will act as a catalyst to create greater seeking. Is this correct? And they say this is partially correct. The paranormal events occurring are not designed to increase seeking, but are manifestations of those whose vibratory configuration enables these entities to contact the gateway to intelligent infinity. So there they're talking about the idea that as fourth density is getting ready to happen on Earth, people come in who already have these abilities to varying degrees activated. And this is where you get things like people bending spoons with their mind, poltergeist activity, levitation, all kinds of weird stuff that various people have had happen, either consciously or unconsciously. They say this is all because new people are coming in with the fourth density body partially activated, and when they have that, they can do these things. So the entities capable of paranormal service may determine to be of such service on a conscious level. This, however, is a function of the entity and its free will and not the paranormal ability. Okay, so that's a double of that slide. Sorry about that. Now this is the next part. The correct portion of your statements is the greater opportunity for service due to the many changes, which will offer many challenges, difficulties, and seeming distresses within your illusion. Now, before I even cut off of this, just keep looking at this for a second. Within your illusion, seeming distresses. What do you mean seeming? What they're talking about right here, in the context of what they're about to say, is exactly what's happening to us right now. That's right. They're talking about seeming distresses. And they're talking about life on Earth being an illusion. What the heck does that mean? Even if somebody dies, in the law of one terms, it's just part of the process of being a soul. We're so unenlightened on Earth in general as a whole, as a planet, that many people believe that death is the end, that you're not going to continue to exist. You're not going to have sentience. You're not going to be aware anymore. The whole beautiful note of the creation that is you and your mind and your personality could be lost. And you sink into this great black abyss when you die and nothing exists and you just forgot that there ever was a universe. It's like it never even happened. My grandparents on my father's side definitely believed this. They certainly believed that when they died that it all goes back to nothing. And this is why we're so afraid of death and why we're so terrified that something might kill us, because the idea is death is the end. Death is the end of awareness. Death is the end of consciousness. Death is the end of thinking and feeling and being. It's not true. You're just as alive as a soul as you are in a physical body, and your soul is just as capable of giving you a new physical body and finding new parents to birth your sorry ass. Your soul is totally capable of doing that, and your soul also is able to impregnate the facial features of the soul onto your face, which is why research has proven that when people reincarnate, they look the same as who they were before. Dr. Ian Stevenson studied over 3,000 children, most of them in the Middle East, in a culture where they believe in reincarnation, and they remember their past lives with astonishing efficacy. Actionable data is recovered in these 3,000 cases that lead to forensic proof that this person is remembering the lifetime of someone else. And then when you compare the lifetime they're remembering to who they are now, and you look at their faces, they're almost identical. And in fact, those who have followed in Dr. Ian Stevenson's footsteps have now used police face matching software. And it turns out that if you committed a crime in your past life, such as murder, the face match is usually so good that you could still be found guilty of it in your subsequent incarnation. Based on the criteria the police use of how much of a face match there is, you could be found guilty for something you did in another lifetime, hypothetically. Now, I don't want to create that law at all. That would be horrible, right? But it already exists, and it's called karma. So if you're getting your ass kicked and you have no idea why your life sucks so much, it's probably because you were a real jerk in another lifetime. And so you're like, well, I don't understand, man, because I'm doing everything right. I'm doing everything right. I'm so nice and I'm friendly and people just keep hurting me. Get over it. Stop complaining. Your life sucks. Everybody's life sucks right now. It sucks hard. That's the point. It's supposed to suck really hard. That's if your life sucks, then you're exactly where I want you to be right now. Okay, so you're doing fine. If your life is really terrible, you've never been more sad, you've never been more angry, you've never been more afraid, and you've never been more sick to your stomach, you're on the David Wilcock timeline. This is what we told you was going to happen for 20 years. We told you this was going to happen. And now here we are. And now you're like, I don't know if I believe this. Well, dude, I told you in 99. I put it up on my website in 99. You can go look, it's there. The military-industrial complex will be defeated and turned into a new financial system that releases advanced technology. And that's a lot nicer and really represents fourth density. I mean, all the crazy stuff that's happening on Earth now, we may not even need Earth changes. This may be enough to kickstart fourth density and start, because as more and more of us awaken, all of a sudden you're going to get more synchronicity, more telepathy, you're going to become more psychic, you're going to have better dreams, you're going to remember them better. Well, maybe not right now because it's so stressful. I'm not remembering my dreams at all right now, but hardly at all. I mean, I get a little bit, but it's been very intense. The world is very intense. That's the way it's supposed to be. It's a global initiation. It's a global dark night of the soul, and it's supposed to be horrible. So don't feel sorry for yourself when your life is horrible. It's intended to be that way, because right now we're at the end of the cycle, and you are being held accountable for not only this lifetime, according to what these beings tell us, you're accountable for all your lifetimes. So you might have violated someone. You might have really badly violated someone in their lifetime, which is a normal thing. You're in an army, you conquer a neighboring land. What are you going to do? You're going to rape and pillage, right? That's just what armies used to do. All of us probably have done that at some point in the past. All of us have probably done horrible things to other people in the past, and now we got to pay for it. The Casey readings describe people laughing about little girls getting the side of their body eaten out by a lion in the Roman Colosseum. They were laughing as these Christians were persecuted. 2,000 years later, they reincarnate with these horrible problems in the side of their body where the girl was being eaten because they were laughing as she was dying. Okay, yes? Let's go back to the slide. I'll read you more of this prophecy. So it says, the correct portion of your statements is the greater opportunity for service due to the many changes which offer many challenges, difficulties, and seeming distresses within your illusion. To many who will then seek to understand, if we may use this misnomer, the reason for the malfunctioning of the physical rhythms of their planet. And then it says, moreover, there exist probability, possibility, vortices. Remember, this is August 8th, 1981, which spiral towards your bellicose actions. Bellicose means evil, warlike, destructive, right? So there are these probability vortices. Many of these vortices are not of the nuclear war, but of a less annihilatory but more lengthy so-called conventional war. But it's not conventional, and they're going to explain that it's totally not conventional. This situation, if formed in your illusion, would offer many opportunities for seeking and for service. Then he says, how would conventional warfare offer the opportunities for seeking and service? Now look at this, folks. This is the big one. You ready? The probabilities exist for situations in which great portions of your continent, and this was done in America, great portions of America and the globe in general might be involved in a type of warfare which you might liken to guerrilla. So again, just to simplify that, great portions of your continent and the globe in general might be involved in a type of guerrilla warfare. I almost want to just drop the mic and be done right there, because it's like, dude, wow. Great portions, let's flip back on it for a second, please. Great portions of your continent and the globe in general might be involved in a type of this warfare. Okay, now you'd say, well, that sounds really exciting. But it's scary as hell. I mean, back when I first was reading the Law of One and I affiliated with Dr. Scott Manelker, who wrote the book on it that got me interested in it. His book was called From Elsewhere. We started talking about this. And then after 98, when book 5 finally came out and we read this, I said, good Lord. Dr. Manelker and I were talking about this prophecy, and we said, in case of emergency, break class. Let's hope that this never comes true. If it does, I guess we'll talk about it once it does. Well, now it came true. So like the Law of One kind of said, yeah, there might be like a global guerrilla warfare thing that happens where your own country, America, is all tied up in this. But they said a type of this. What I've realized is, yeah, that is totally defined by the asymmetric dynamics of rioting. And who's really doing the rioting, and what are they really doing, right? And what are they doing? They're attacking infrastructure, they're burning down cities, they're making people afraid. That's guerrilla warfare. So they're using a particular term to try to describe something that we're now seeing, and now we can unlock the prophecy. Now we can understand what they meant by global warfare. And it's pretty clear that, yeah, that comparing it to guerrilla warfare, it sounds a little extreme because it's more aggressive than the way that we normally talk about, oh, well, they're riots, they're protests. No. These are like people burning things down, people doing all kinds of crazy stuff. That is warfare, and it's that type of warfare. Okay, now let's go back to the slide. So then they're going to go even further into this prophecy, and again, this totally blows me away in light of what's happening right now. The ideal of freedom from the so-called invading force of either the controlled fascism or the equally controlled social common ownership of all things. Freedom from fascism and social ownership of all things would stimulate great quantities of contemplation upon the great polarization implicit in the contrast between freedom and control. So right here, let's just... They're literally saying a global controlled fascism in the form of nonlinear guerrilla warfare that takes place all over the world and in America simultaneously. And this is what is it going to do? It's going to stimulate people's desire to meditate on freedom and control. Yeah, you're stimulated by that. Well, that's what the beings really want. They want you to become a person who is strong, liberated, and free. And they want you to be a person who doesn't wait for other people. Well, why hasn't David done a video in a month and a half? Well, where's your video? I don't usually do this to you, right? But let's just talk about this. Don't expect me to do everything, right? I'm not the hero. I'm just one dude doing this. I'm not the planetary savior in any way, shape, or form. And please don't think that I am. Anybody that says that, I say, oh my God, no. I'm more like Morpheus in the Matrix, right? And you're Neo. And so my role is really to kind of, make the handshake with the higher forces, hear what they have to say, present it to you, and then you go run with it and see what you can do. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get you activated, because this is not something where you just sit back in the backyard waiting for the apocalypse in your lawn chair, drinking a beer and whatever else you're doing. It's much more than that. It's about individual responsibility and how have you contributed to what's going on right now. Are you being an effective member of society? Are you telling other people what's really going on? Are you being brave enough? And again, it might be nonlinear. And they even talk about the fact here that this type of controlled fascism will lead to the ability where you can't openly express your desire for freedom. Look at this. Let's go back to the slide, because that's pretty interesting. Okay. So the next thing they talk about is these other weapons, and this is very, very interesting. Oops. Yeah, my slides go out right as I'm, here we go. Are they back now? Okay. In this scenario, which is being considered by the deep state at this time-space nexus, meaning 1981, so they were already planning this back in 81, folks, and there's new evidence that's been coming out that I could maybe do later that talks about that. The idea of obliterating valuable sites and personnel is not considered to be useful. They don't want to get rid of anything, and they don't want to get rid of any valuable people. Other weapons would be used which do not destroy as your nuclear arms would. In this ongoing struggle, the light of freedom would burn within the mind-body-spirit complexes who are capable of such polarization. And that's a very interesting thing. First of all, other weapons would be used which do not destroy as your nuclear arms would. And they said weapons in plural, right? Well, we're getting a pretty good idea what those kind of weapons might be. It could include germs, it could include injectables, all kinds of stuff, right? And we're seeing this. We're in it now. Well, they were telling us about this in 1981, and they said weapons plural. So this is very, very fascinating. And then another thing that the Law of One talks about is many people on Earth are not even actually at a third density level. They're only at a second density or orange ray level instead of the yellow ray level of third density. They're only at orange. Now, what does this mean? This means herd mentality, crowd consciousness, and the worship of they, whoever they are, whatever they say. When I look at the older demographic, the baby boomer demographic, and I was reading Nextdoor, a common, community site today, and there was a whole thing on Nextdoor about this issue of whether people are going to take this particular medical treatment or not. And what I found, and I decided not to use these as slides because it has people's names in it and then they might get targeted, but my God, there were people on this public forum calling for the death of anyone that won't accept the treatment. That they are so afraid that they cannot tolerate these people being alive and having any freedom. And those people probably will not be capable of polarizing towards freedom. So let's go back to the slide. The light of freedom will burn in this struggle within those people who are capable of such polarization. So if you haven't really made it into third density yet, that means that you haven't learned individuation. You haven't learned to think for yourself, make up your own mind, and discard the voice of the collective authority. Okay, that's a basic criteria for third density. Because second density animals, they listen to the collective. They listen to what they say, whoever they is, or whoever they are. Better English. To the quote now. Okay, so it says, the light of freedom would burn within those capable of such polarization, lacking the opportunity for the overt expression of the love of freedom, which is actually what's happening to me. I can't usually talk about this right now, right? I'm going to get censored. I'll lose my whole platform. Lacking the opportunity for the overt expression of the love of freedom, the seeking for inner knowledge will take root, aided by those of the brothers and sisters of sorrow who remember their calling upon this sphere. So that means brothers and sisters of sorrow, again, are wanderers, ET souls, probably like you. If you're a big fan of the stuff that I talk about, you're probably not a regular human being because you get into this and you like this, whereas everybody else, you try to talk to them about it, they're like, oh. Freedom is a very difficult concept to envision. It's the freedom of thinking. It's the freedom to envision that the world is completely different than what you thought, that everything you thought you knew is wrong. That's a huge perceptual shift, and it is a necessary stage of awakening that we all have to go through. That the world is very, very different than what we've been told. Science is very, very different than what we've been told. Many, many pieces of this consciousness science, the idea that DNA is a product of an intelligence that arises out of quantum mechanics itself. The DNA molecule is made by the intelligent laws implicit in quantum mechanics. We've had proof of this for a decade, 10 decades. Nobody ever is going to promote it because the press is controlled. They don't want you to know that you have a spirit. They don't want you to know that God is real. They don't want you to know that there is an afterlife, that you will never die, that you don't need to be afraid of your death. I mean, honestly, right now, the fourth density that's coming is a total reboot of the earth, and they say in the law of one that even people who died and are in the afterlife will come back into bodies when we go into 4D. If you lost your mother, if you lost your father, if you lost your brother, your sister, your wife, your husband, and you grieve about their loss, they're going to be back. You're going to see them in a new body when we go through this. That's what the prophecies tell us. No one is lost. No one is really dead. You're going to hang out with them in a physical body again. They might be in a different configuration, but that's what's going to happen. So the brothers and sisters of sorrow, when you can't overtly express the desire for freedom, it leads to the inner seeking. And so what they're actually doing right now is giving us some advice. And what they're saying is, yeah, you can't really talk about this stuff and because you're going to get taken down in most of these platforms, but what you can do is encourage others to pursue spiritual growth, because that's really the core of what we're here for. Now let's go back to the slide. Okay, so then he's going to follow up on this thing about this global war, because he's very concerned. Are you saying then that this possible condition of war would be much more greatly spread across the surface of the globe than anything we have experienced in the past? Answer, this is correct. It's a very on-the-nose prophecy. And they didn't say it's definitely going to happen, but I think they were pretty sure that it would. And that's why they talk about it. I just didn't want to believe it, so that's why I said, well, if this actually happens, I'll talk about it. But up until then, I don't want to put that out there. Okay, let's go on. Okay, so that was the quote. I'm sorry, it doubled again. I don't know why. Now look at this. As they continue to answer this question, this is what they say next. The very next thing. There are those now experimenting with one of the major weapons of this scenario. That is the so-called psychotronic group of devices. Whoa! One of the major weapons of this scenario, psychotronic. Well, let's look up that word real quick, okay? So this is what I did. I did on DuckDuckGo, just to give them some shout-outs. What is psychotronics? Declassified yet partially redacted company documents from September 1975 reveal a mysterious subtle energy device developed by a Czechoslovakian scientist named Robert Pavilta. According to the report, his psychotronic devices, called psychotronic or Pavilta generators, can draw, store, and transmit the life force energy of an individual. Draw the life force energy off of an individual. Control the way that people think. Let's look at another definition, this time from Wikipedia. Psychotronics. Psychotronics may refer to psychotronics parapsychology, a Czech term for research and development in parapsychology, psychotronic harassment, aka electronic harassment, the very second term that comes up. And remember, what did they say? Psychotronic devices, one of the major weapons of this scenario, right? Okay, so now let's go back. So it says psychotronic harassment. And then, as you see, there's a disambiguation on that. You can click on the psychotronic harassment link. So let's click on that and see what happens. Now we go to the wiki page for electronic harassment. And it says, this article is about purported harassment and torture with covert energy weapons for the harming or harassing via the World Wide Web or similar. See cyberbullying. That's good. Okay, yeah. Electronic harassment, electromagnetic torture, or psychotronic torture is a conspiracy theory that government agents make use of electromagnetic radiation, such as microwave auditory effect, radar, and surveillance techniques to transmit sounds and thoughts into people's heads, affect people's bodies, and harass people. Individuals who claim to experience this call themselves targeted individuals or TIs. They claim they are victims of gang stalking, and many have created or joined support and advocacy groups. Multiple medical professionals have evaluated that these experiences are hallucinations, the result of delusional disorders or psychosis. Of course, it couldn't possibly be anything other than that, because nobody would ever try to aim a microwave at a human being. Nobody would ever think of that. Sure, of course, nobody would ever try to invent this stuff, right? Nobody would ever try this. I mean, right now, we had this whole situation where the vice president of the U.S. at this time, or at least who appears to be, she went to a particular country and appears to have gotten an electromagnetic attack, and that was in the public because she suddenly fell ill and then had to cancel the trip, and I read a lot of stuff about this. So we are talking about this. These things do exist, okay? So once again, going back to the slide, it says there are those now experimenting with one of the major weapons of this scenario, the so-called psychotronic group of devices. Now wait for it, part 2, which are being experimentally used to cause such alterations in wind and weather as will result in eventual famine. Whoa! So now we're talking about weather control. Well, how much have you heard me talk about weather control? Obviously, I believe that the polar vortex sliding all the way down to Texas and plunging them into a deep freeze, it was literally apocalyptic for many people. That's not normal. I believe that was a manipulated event. I believe most of the fires that we're seeing are manipulated. I believe that they are igniting fires using satellites. It's not that hard. You just set up a beam and you zap one area, get it going. But also now we have PV, this project that's out there, and the second word means truth. You probably know who I'm talking about. They've done a lot of incredible work, and just recently this came up, okay? Their headquarters was destroyed by a strange weather system which just so happened to hit their area of Long Island, New York, the hardest out of anyone. Now let's talk about this again, okay? A hurricane slides up the east coast of America, makes landfall in Mamaroneck, New York, the exact area where this group is located, who's doing the most damage to the usual suspects right now. And they have this horrible flood. Let's look at the next picture. Their whole office was wiped out. I mean, I watched videos that were taken in this room, and now you can see the water line on the brick wall in the back is below the logo. You see the desk is all waterlogged. I mean, the floodwaters went up so high. And he says, our hearts are broken today as our headquarter office in Mamaroneck was devastated by the storm last night. Mamaroneck was one of the hardest hit cities in the Northeast. No surprise. Continuously attacked by external forces since the beginning when we were nothing but a laptop and a carriage house. Out of ashes, we continuously rise. We lost a lot, but we are alive. Our insiders need us to continue fielding tips. The parents from last night need us to continue exposing corrupt teachers, journalists, like the patriots who support us and protect us. We will never be defeated by outside forces. It is only because we choose to stop persevering. When we go back to the drawing board, there is always that flame that never goes out. That's freedom. A flame that doesn't go out. Because of what we stand for, the only ones who have the power to stop us is ourselves. Now here is a view of the outside of their building, and you can see even after the floodwaters had hit their highest point and were now receding, cars are all the way up almost to the top of the windows there. You see that? Unbelievable. So then he posted this about how the headquarters was destroyed, and it was very, very sad. However, the community rallied around. And now, as of September 10th, a couple days ago, they've already raised almost half of $1.5 million to make sure they're back up and operational as soon as possible. So did the negative really gain anything from this? No. If this was done by some type of apparently psychotronic device. In fact, when we get attacked, we only become stronger. And that's really the key that the Law of One talks about. When the negative is attacking you, one of two things are going to happen. You're either going to raise to the level of the attack and go above it by, pushing for freedom, pushing for love, defending your healthy boundaries, because that's a very important part. It's the forgiveness with boundaries. You can't just do one without the other. If all you do is forgive people, then you're going to be destroyed. So you have to set these boundaries. So what happens is they thought they were going to wipe them out. The elite thought they were going to destroy this team, and instead now they've raised $750,000. They're going to raise 1.5. I'm sure they'll get it all, and they're going to come back bigger and better than ever, newly angry with a new taste for justice in their mouths. So it didn't do anything except to give us all a story of hope and inspiration, and that's the polarization. That's the many challenges and seeming distresses within your illusion. The world isn't real, and if we die, we're still alive, consciously, in another form. So the fear of death is how we get manipulated, and what they're trying to do is keep beating you up so that you stay in that reptilian brain. You'll do something dumb, like a bunch of people doing bad things at a protest. Then they can bring in all the stuff. Then they can throw us in camps. Then they can crack down. That's what they're trying to do. They want us to screw up. They want us to be unevolved. They want us to act violently. They want us to do stupid things so that they can then justify the severity of the response, so that the people I'm reading on Nextdoor will say, oh, I support this. We must stop this horrible problem. These people, we must stop them. Whoa, dude. No, we're not going to go there. All right? So let's read on from this prophecy from 1981 from the Law of One, because they've just said that it's going to be a global thing, guerrilla warfare all over the world, all at once, weird weapons that don't cause large-scale property damage, and there's weapons plural, and that this includes psychotronic. Many people are worried about what might be going on with their phone, what might be going on with subliminals, frequencies, all stuff that's beamed at us. I mean, it's entirely possible that there are things going on that change the way that people think. And certainly another form of mind control, obviously, is information. If you present people with certain information compellingly, and the big con is that, well, there's so many different authoritative sources that say this, how could it be wrong? It could be wrong because rich people bought all those things and they're telling you what they want you to hear. Okay, so we're almost done now. And here we are. I think I can actually keep it to 3 hours if I stop right now. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm David Wilcock. Hopefully you will go to thedisclosure.com, sign up on our website there, give us your email address. Otherwise, we may lose touch with you. It's entirely possible. We're looking at the possibility of a blackout still happening, whether electrical or internet. That could happen. If that does start to happen, that's probably when the war and the arrests are taking place. But I also was given a briefing not too long ago that there may not be any war. This may all happen peacefully, in which case I would expect administrative solutions involving, court cases and Supreme Court this or whatever, state court that, but something is coming in which if so many people see the truth and they don't want this regime in power, it will not be able to hold power. And the military may be called upon by the people. That's what I think is going to happen. So it's all good. Don't freak out. Don't commit suicide. Don't do anything dumb. Don't get all drunk and crazy. Just relax. It's all going to be good. I'm your host, David Wilcock, here with my beautiful wife, Elizabeth, and we'll see you next Sunday. Thanks for watching.